These are 7 players ranked too low on all the popular fantasy sites like ESPN, Sleeper, and Yahoo. We went and analyzed them, and here's our picks. First off, we got Alexander Mattison. Historically, in the past few years, people have talked about the running back dead zone, that being rounds about 3 through 7, and they say that running backs have been underperforming in that range. But recently, wide receivers, because of the running back dead zone, have been boosted in popularity. And now you can find a lot of running back values in that 3rd through 7th round. And Mattison's a guy who, on the sites that we looked at, ESPN, Sleeper, and Yahoo, he's going around pick 60, which is, if you're in 12 team, it's the 5th or 6th round is when he's going to get grabbed, or the 6th or 7th in 10 team league. So you're getting him in about the 6th round, maybe 7th sometimes in these platforms, and that's just too late for me for a guy that's going to get a crazy workload. He really doesn't have any competition. In the past, when Dalvin Cook has been out, he's performed and he gets 20 plus points every game not every game, but a ton of the games. And if not, then he's close. A lot of people talk about the knock on him is really that he underperformed in efficiency metrics last year. However, it's a bit of an outlier because he's not been super inefficient. I don't think he's an amazing running back or anything, but he's a guy who will be utilized in the passing game, doesn't have a lot of competition, and is on a pretty good offense that can move the ball. So there's really not a lot of risk you're taking on, barring them trading for another running back or doing one of these signings, which I don't think that they plan on. They knew they were getting rid of Dalvin Cook, and yet they didn't sign anybody new. So I think it's a great value, a guy with a ton of volume that you can get in the late rounds if you go early wide receiver.
Completely agreed there. So our next value is going to be Justin Herbert, which on ESPN and Yahoo can be found around pick 65, 63, somewhere in that range. On Sleeper, he is going slightly earlier at pick 46, which I don't really like that value as much. But if you can get him around pick 65, 63, which in 10 team is that 6th, 7th round, and 12 teams that 5th to 6th round, I think that is absolutely perfect. So I've been known as sort of a Herbert hater in the past, which I'm not, but I am realistic on his expectations. And in the past, they've just been unrealistic. But this year, they brought in OC Kellen Moore from the Cowboys. Kellen Moore's time with the Cowboys the past 3 years, they've been top 5 in points per game and yards per game in the past 3 seasons in a row. So you're bringing that vertical passing threat, the yards, and the touchdowns from the Cowboys to here. Plus, they drafted another first-round receiver in Quentin Johnson, so that gives him Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, and Quentin Johnson to throw the ball to, while also throwing to Austin Eckler for those easy dump-off passes. So to me, Herbert is just a can't-miss prospect this year, and I think he has unlimited upside. It would not surprise me if he is quarterback 1 this season.
Yeah, he absolutely has that potential. I think people are suffering a little bit because of what happened last year and not remembering what happened every year before that. He, like you said, incredible weapons, a new offensive system where I think he's going to throw downfield more. I think part of what made him lack a little bit in production at the end of last year was that not only did he get injured, but sort of because that injury happened, he wasn't really throwing downfield as much, and possibly just because of a weak offensive system, which we're hoping is going to improve this year. He's got the arm talent for it, so I don't see why not. And with the weapons around him, it's hard to miss. And I see him as similar, more so to Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, but you can get him at like a 2-round discount. And to me, I'm going to take the running backs and receivers in that range and then wait on Justin Herbert. Next up, Mark Andrews. Now, Mark Andrews is someone who, again, last year, towards the end of the year, didn't have great production. He did have an injury, and when he came back, he was okay. He was about 10 or 11 points per game, which is underwhelming for Mark Andrews. You drafted him in the early 3rd or something like that last year. This year, however, he's going more so in the late 3rd, early 4th, which at least on ESPN and Yahoo. On Sleeper, he's going in the early 3rd. I still am okay with him there, especially in maybe a 10-team league format, because you get a better positional advantage there. But in 12 team, if you're in ESPN or Sleeper or any of these sites where they have him in like the late, you can grab him in the late third or the early fourth. I love that value. You've got Lamar Jackson coming back, which he wasn't there at the end of last year when he sort of underperformed. Lamar Jackson has always thrown to Mark Andrews, and he throws touchdowns to Mark Andrews, and we know that. He's back. He's paid. There's a huge connection there. There are other weapons coming in on the Ravens, but nobody that immediately usurps Mark Andrews' position as the main target, in my opinion. So I like that value, get that positional advantage. There's not a lot of tight ends we love, so if you can get him in the fourth round or the late third, I like it.
Yep, absolutely. So next up, the value that we like is going to be running back James Conner. In ESPN, Sleeper, and Yahoo, he's going around the same, that 59, 63 to 53 range. So somewhere around 6-ish. So you're looking at 5 to 6 in round 12 and maybe closer to 6 7 again in 10-team leagues. So James Conner has been a top 10 running back 2 years in a row in points per game basis. Obviously, we know the knock on him is injury. He does miss usually 1 to 3 games a year, but take it how you can. So the Cardinals this year, everybody sees them as a joke team. They're not going to win many games. But guess what? Winning games doesn't matter in fantasy points. You can score points and lose. So James Conner is going to be the bell cow. The new head coach, Jonathan Gannon, has already come out and called him their bell cow. They have not added another piece. They added Marlon Mack for depth, and he tore his Achilles already. So they literally have no other running back other than James Conner with any sort of experience in the NFL. I do expect them to add somebody, but it's not going to be someone of note. I do not see a Kareem Hunt signing. I don't see them signing any running back of that nature. So what Gannon and Drew Petzing, the new offensive coordinator of the Cardinals, like to do, they like to run the ball. They like to pound the ball. So I would not be surprised to see Conner get 15 to 25 touches a game. And he already dominated touchdowns the past 2 years. I see that going same way moving forward. And he's probably good for another 2 to 3 catches a game, just like last year. To me, I mean, he's been top 10 running back the past 2 years, and he's going as RB 27. The math just doesn't add up on that. He is a steal right now.
Yeah, late fifth, early sixth round, something like that. I think another thing that people say because I would say most people I've seen really don't care for James Conner, regardless of the fact that you said top 10 in points per game over the last 2 years. The big knock on him I've heard is that his offensive line is horrible, possibly like bottom 5. But I mean, is this new? Is it new that the Cardinals have sucked, but yet he still produces? I don't really see how that puts him outside the 6th round.
Yeah, so the offensive line is vastly improved than it was last year. So most people know we drafted Paris Johnson Jr. from Ohio State in the 1st round this year. So now we have 2 first-round tackles on our line. We have Will Hernandez back healthy last year, which he was, I believe, a top 10 graded guard from last year. Unfortunately, he got hurt, but he is back this year. And then we've brought in a couple of good options for center and left guard. So I would not be surprised to actually see this Cardinals offensive line rise from like the 26th, 27th ranked line last year to around about that average, 15th ranked offensive line, which, 27th to 15 would be a huge upgrade for your running backs.
All right, next up, a wide receiver. Not a lot of wide receiver values in these middle rounds that we're talking about, but this is one that I like and one that I think has a lot of upside. Mike Williams of the Los Angeles Chargers. He's his pretty much his whole career been the wide receiver 2, and we've already talked about the Chargers offense getting that Kellen Moore offense coming in that we think will throw the ball downfield more. And who does that benefit? Mike Williams. Mike Williams is the downfield guy, and he had a decent year last year. I know he hurt you a lot on, pretty much every other week. He would just score a little bit, and then the other week he'd score 30. I think that if the Chargers consistently can throw downfield more, that he can be a little more consistent. However, he still is that boom bust guy. So I do like him as my wide receiver 3 in a team composition. If you can get a flex or wide receiver 3 as Mike Williams, though, he has weak winning potential, which you need on any roster. So he's a guy that I target if I need that on my team. And he's going in the 6th round-ish, sometimes the 7th. So if you can pick him up there, I really like that value.
Yep. All right, next up we got Darren Waller. which, depending on what platform you use, ESPN, I think he's going around pick 58, which might be a little bit early for my taste. But then on Sleeper and Yahoo, he's going around pick 70 and 71, which to me is really good value. So Waller is interesting to me. So there is some risk involved in him with drafting him, as he's over 30. He's missed a good amount of games the past 2 years. He's switching teams. He's playing with a quarterback that has yet to throw more than 16 touchdowns in a season. But you're getting a guy in like the seventh, eighth round, seventh, eighth turn, somewhere around in there, that still has a chance to lead his team in target percentage, lead his team in receiving yards, and lead his team in receiving touchdowns. And if you can get a tight end that late that has pretty good potential to lead in those three categories, then you could get an absolute steal. We've seen Darren Waller be a fantasy steal before. We've seen him dominate before. It would not surprise me if he does it again in New York. And who does he have to compete with for targets? A couple rookies and an always injured Wan'Dale Robinson. Like, he has no target competition, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I really don't think that, like you said, there's no competition, but also I don't think he's really fallen off. Definitely not enough to ignore on that Giants offense. So I think his metrics look pretty good, even though he was a little bit of a disappointment last year. You've got to pick your spot for tight end. There's not a lot of value. You're either going super late and punting the position entirely, or, in my opinion, the really only values are this like kind of Waller area. You could get Goddard sometimes in that area, or you got to pay up for a Kelsey or an Andrews, and Kelsey's in the first round. So I like to take this spot around here, and if I miss it, I just punt it. Wrapping up, our seventh pick is Devon Achane. We wanted to put a late round guy in there. We had a lot of middle round values. Here's a person that is Devon Achane is he was drafted the Miami Dolphins in the third round. He's a fast running back, which the Dolphins love, and the Dolphins currently have two other running backs, Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert, both of which sort of underperformed last year, and they're getting up there in age, have injury history. So he absolutely has a chance to come in here and if he proves himself, I don't think that they would shy away from giving him the start. So in the late rounds, I'm talking sometimes with the last pick of your draft, you can pick up somebody who has that kind of potential, and worst case, you throw him away. With that kind of upside, I see that as a huge value. In ESPN specifically, he's well into the 200s in their rankings. Yahoo has him almost at 140. He's at 110 in Sleeper, which is about, I would take him there still. On some of my teams just for upside. But if you can get him like in these extremely late rounds, like 12th, 13th, 14th round plus as your last pick, that is a smash play, and you're not finding upside like that at the running back position that late in the draft. All right. Well, that wraps up our 7 values that you need to draft. We have been the Fantasy Bros. Thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and we are out.